Unlock the potential of fluent English conversation by subscribing to Ali Trainings. Learn English in a fun, effective, and easy way. Here's a list of 100 Who's questions with answers designed for daily spoken English conversation. Whose car are we taking to the trip? We are taking Sarah's car. It has more space. Whose idea was it to start this business? It was Jason's idea to start the business. Whose book is this on the table? That's my book. I left it there earlier. Whose turn is it to choose the movie tonight? It's your turn to choose the movie. Whose responsibility is it to lock up at night? It's the last person who leaves, so tonight that's Tom. Whose laptop is faster for gaming? Mark's laptop is faster for gaming. He just upgraded it. Whose dog won the competition last weekend? The golden retriever belonging to Mrs. Jennings won. Whose project got selected for the funding? Anita's project got selected for the funding. Whose phone keeps ringing? It's Mike's phone. He forgot it in the conference room. Whose birthday is coming up next week? It's Lisa's birthday next Thursday. Whose job is it to organize the meeting notes? It's usually done by Jenna, our administrative assistant. Whose shoes are these by the door? Those are my brother's shoes. Whose decision was it to cancel the event? The management decided to cancel the event. Whose handwriting is this on the whiteboard? That's Dr. Smith's handwriting. Whose coat is hanging in the bathroom? That might be Sally's coat. Whose advice do you generally follow when it comes to finances? I usually follow advice from my financial planner. Whose work inspired you to pursue a career in art? I was inspired by Van Gogh's work. Whose recipe are we using for the cake? We are using Grandma's recipe. Whose presentation is scheduled for this afternoon? The presentation by Mr. Allen is scheduled for this afternoon. Whose signature is required on these documents? These documents require the CEO's signature. Whose portfolio is the most diverse among your clients? Among my clients, Angela's portfolio is the most diverse. Whose idea was it to redecorate the office? Redecorating the office was Greg's idea. Whose number did you dial by mistake? I accidentally dialed Rachel's number. Whose golf clubs are these in the garage? Those are my father's golf clubs. Whose responsibility is it to train the new employees? It's my responsibility to train new employees. Whose bicycle is that locked outside? That's Tim's bicycle. He rides it to work every day. Whose team won the match yesterday? The Red Dragons won the match yesterday. Whose comments were noted in the meeting report? The comments noted were from Ms. Thompson. Whose advice did you seek regarding the deal? I sought advice from our legal counsel. Whose design was selected for the new logo? Alex's design was selected for the new logo. Whose responsibility is it to check the mail daily? It's part of the receptionist's duties to check the mail. Whose dog seems to be lost in the neighborhood? It seems like the dog from house number 42 is lost. Whose job is it to maintain the garden? The maintenance team is responsible for the garden. Whose project are you most impressed with? I am most impressed with Nora's project. Whose car broke down on the way to work today? It was Derek's car that broke down. Whose article was published in the local newspaper? Mrs. Clark's article was published last Sunday. Whose opinion do you value the most when making significant decisions? I value my mentor's opinion the most. Whose bike did you borrow for the race? I borrowed Chris's bike for the race. Whose painting won the first prize in the art show? The painting by Sophie won the first prize. Whose idea was it to go hiking next weekend? It was Angela who suggested we go hiking. Whose work has influenced your latest project? My latest project was influenced by contemporary artist Emily Mason. Whose techniques do you use in your cooking? I use techniques that I learned from Chef Ramsay. Whose contribution to the project was crucial? Kevin's contribution was crucial to the success of our project. Whose responsibility is it to organize team outings? Organizing team outings is part of the HR department's responsibilities. Whose desk is this with all the plants? That's Jessica's desk. She loves having plants around. Whose photograph is hanging on that wall? That's a photograph of the company's founder. Whose advice should we seek regarding this issue? We should seek advice from a seasoned industry expert. Whose jacket did you borrow for the ski trip? I borrowed Max's jacket because it's very warm. Whose assistance was most helpful during the project? Lily's assistance was invaluable during the project. Whose performance are you looking forward to at the concert? I'm looking forward to seeing Beyoncé perform. Whose decision was it to hire the new manager? It was the board's decision to hire the new manager. Whose notebook is this in the conference room? That's probably Rita's notebook. She was looking for it earlier. Whose plan do we follow in case of an emergency? We follow the safety coordinator's plan in case of an emergency. Whose keys are these on the table? Those keys belong to the facilities manager. Whose coffee mug is this on my desk? That might be Mark's. He was in your office this morning. Whose approval do we need to proceed with the funding? We need approval from the finance director to proceed. Whose strategy was effective during the last project? Sandra's strategy was particularly effective. Whose work ethic do you admire the most? I admire Lisa's work ethic. She's always the first to arrive and the last to leave. Whose handwriting is difficult to read? Alex's handwriting is a bit challenging to read. Whose idea was it to implement flexible working hours? The idea was initially proposed by the HR department. Whose lunch is this in the fridge with no label? It might be Tom's. He often forgets to label his lunch. Whose presentation impressed the clients the most? Amir's presentation impressed the clients immensely. Whose feedback do you need on the new design? I need feedback from the design team leader. Whose responsibility is it to update the software regularly? The IT department is responsible for software updates. Whose car is blocking the driveway? That's Jenna's car. She should be moving it soon. Whose signature do we need on this contract? We need the CEO's signature before we can finalize the contract. Whose idea was it to start an employee wellness program? The wellness program was initiated by Julia from HR. Whose leadership style do you find most effective? I find Maria's leadership style to be the most effective. Whose report was submitted late? The report from the marketing team was submitted late. Whose dog is that outside? That's the neighbor's dog. It often plays in the yard. Whose recommendation led to your promotion? My promotion was based on a recommendation from my supervisor. Whose painting is displayed in the main hallway? The painting is by a local artist, showcased for this month's art event. Whose advice do you generally seek in difficult situations? I usually seek advice from my mentor, who has a lot of experience. Whose responsibility is it to train new staff? Training new staff is usually the responsibility of the department managers. Whose idea was it to organize a company retreat? Organizing the retreat was Greg's idea. He's great at team-building activities. Whose contribution to the team do you value the most? I value everyone's contribution, but Sarah's efforts stand out. Whose decision was it to change suppliers? The decision was made by the procurement team after reviewing several options. Whose techniques are used in the software? The software uses techniques developed by our lead engineer. Whose job is it to ensure safety in the workplace? Safety in the workplace is everyone's responsibility, but it's monitored by the safety officer. Whose phone number is this on the list? That number belongs to our supplier, Mr. Chen. Whose artwork won the first prize at the fair? The first prize was won by an emerging artist, Emily Tran. Whose assistance do you require to complete this task? I will need assistance from the tech support team. Whose email should I respond to first? Please respond to the client's email first. It's urgent. Whose approach do you think will solve this issue? I think Michael's approach might work best for this issue. Whose project is due at the end of this month? The finance team's project is due at the end of the month. Whose advice was crucial in your career development? The advice from my college professor was crucial in shaping my career. Whose judgment do you trust the most? I trust Dr. Lisa's judgment the most, especially in clinical matters. Whose responsibility is it to clean up after meetings? It's everyone's responsibility to clean up their own space after meetings. Whose package is this in the reception area? It's a delivery for the admin department. Whose writing influenced your latest book? My latest book was influenced by the works of Hemingway. Whose efforts do you think contributed most to our success? It's hard to single out, but James played a key role. Whose design was chosen for the new marketing campaign? The design by our creative team, led by Sophia, was chosen. Whose opinion matters most when evaluating new products? Customer feedback is the most important in product evaluation. Whose schedule is the most flexible for the meeting? It looks like Amir has the most flexible schedule this week. Whose technique do you use when negotiating deals? I use techniques that I learned from senior sales executives. Whose leadership will guide the new project? The project will be guided by our director, Mr. Lee. Whose decision will it be to expand the team? The decision to expand the team will come from upper management. Whose support was invaluable during the product launch? The marketing team's support was invaluable. Whose idea was it to increase community engagement? Increasing community engagement was primarily Zoe's idea. Whose contributions do you think will be vital for our future projects? Contributions from both the development and marketing teams will be vital. Enhance your English speaking skills for better daily interactions. Subscribe to Ali Trainings and access a wide range of resources to help you speak English confidently and effectively.